I laid my cheek against the broadcloth of his inner thigh, and felt the muscle leap under my mouth. I turned my head and set my teeth, very softly, into the tender meat above his knee. He drew in his breath in a long thin hiss.
Mr. Whitfield, are you unwell, sir?
Quite well. Continue.
I reached up. My fingers found the first button of his trousers and slipped it free. The second, the third, his hand on my neck went rigid. His whole thigh shook against my cheek. He was burning. He was iron. He was wet through the linen beneath the wool, and I had not yet laid a finger on the heart of him. I freed the last button and turned my face inward and pressed my open mouth, slow and hot and deliberate, against the strained linen of his drawers, where he stood up against the cloth, thick and hard and trembling. Above me he made a sound.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, our greatest benefactor of the evening, Mr. Gideon Whitfield, will say a few.
Not a word, a sound. The spotlight found the table. Applause swelled. He had to stand. He had to stand, and his trousers hung open, and any movement of the cloth would put the truth of him on display before every banker, every senator, every dowager in Savannah. He sank back into the chair as if shot, reached with a hand that shook for the speaking trumpet on the table. He lifted it to his mouth. In the dark beneath the cloth I smiled, and I lowered my head, and I took the linen and what strained beneath it into my mouth in one slow, scalding pull. Gideon, into the trumpet before the entire assembled aristocracy of Georgia. I was built for the bedroom, burning with an insatiable meat hunger that ordinary men simply could not survive. My first husband had already perished from it, and now, my second lay dead beneath me on a bed soaked in sweat and raw, uninhibited lust. He gasped his last chest-seizing breath, drained to the bone by my feral greed, and went entirely limp. Within weeks, that warm bed dissolved into a cold, black-framed funeral portrait. Suddenly, I was a two-time widow in a stark black and white ballroom, choked in a tight lace morning gown, forbidden to dance. I sat behind a champagne table while the aristocrats whispered their disgust behind painted fans. I ignored them. Beneath my long skirt, my black stockings' thighs danced brazenly, tracing wild steps as if my blood burned with an insatiable fire. Then, the doors burst open into vivid, suffocating color. Gideon Whitfield strode in, a dark velvet box in his gloved hand. His tailcoat hung wide. His collar was drenched with a feverish sweat. Underneath his skin, veins bulged, and his eyes gleamed with a feral crimson wildness that whispered of his dead brides, bound to a dark bed in red silk. Every debutante blanched, staring at his box like it was a coffin. But I didn't look at the box. My eyes locked onto the massive swelling bulge in his trousers. I swiped my tongue over my dry lips, my veins roaring like a rising tide. Days, I thought, a ravenous smile climbing my face. Step aside, ladies, this monster is mine. Mama's people came up from New Orleans, and whatever ran in their veins runs hotter in mine. I have tried prayer. I have tried laudanum. I have tried lying very still in a dark room with a Bible on my chest. Nothing cools it. A woman built like me wants a man built to match, and there is only one such creature left in Georgia. Gideon Whitfield, cotton, railroad stock, and a reputation black enough to scorch the pages of the society columns. They say he murders his women in the dark. They say he keeps a doctor on retainer. They say his appetites would shame a Roman. Tonight he was to choose his next prey. There would be no courtship, no polite invitations. He had decreed that at this very ball, he would draw a single name from a velvet box containing the cards of every eligible lady in the room. Whomever he pulled would be his next wife, a legal sacrifice to his fortune and his bed. To every other lady in the city, the dance card ball was a death sentence. To me, it was a cure. The ballroom of the Grand Savannah blazed with gaslight, crenolines hissed. Mama had not let go of my wrist since the carriage.
Belle, when the box comes round, you keep your hand in your lap. Do you hear me, child? You keep your hand in your lap.
They say he ties them, Belle. They say he does not stop. For days.
I patted Mama's glove and felt my pulse climbing my throat.
Days. Lord in heaven, days.
As the box passed from hand to hand, trembling fingers drew folded cards and trembling lips sighed. Thanks to Jesus. When my turn came, I rose. Mama nearly fainted into the punch bowl. I had bought my card off a porter for $50 in coin 3 nights before. It bore a small raised crest, the size of a pea, that my thumb could find in the dark. I climbed the dais. As I passed Gideon Whitfield, I let my slipper turn on the polished boards and fell, prettily, against his coat. He stepped aside as if I were a horse with the colic. I struck the floor with both knees and bit blood out of my lip to keep from laughing. Clara Monroe, sweet as boiled syrup, tittered behind her fan.
Why, Belle Harlow? Can't you even fall on a man without him moving?
I plunged my hand into the box, found my crest, and held the card up to the chandeliers.
I believe the gentleman is mine.
Mama swooned. Mr. Harlow sat down on a chair that wasn't there. Gideon did not look pleased. He looked at his aide, and the aide stepped forward with a small bow.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Whitfield has reconsidered. There will be no engagement tonight. Miss Harlow has instead been appointed Mr. Whitfield's personal secretary. 3 months trial.
The room exhaled in pity. Gideon paused beside me on his way out, close enough that I felt the heat coming off his throat. He left me standing there with my dance card crushed in my fist, my blood roaring, and a promise blooming behind my teeth. Office wife, then. He thought he could put me in a starched collar and cool me down. He had no notion what he had just hired. I dressed for war, determined to lock his eyes onto me and keep them there. A morning gown of dove silk, cut a half-inch lower at the bodice than any decent woman wore before noon, and stays laced, so tight my breath came shallow. The hem swept the marble of Whitfield Manor at 1 minute before 8. Clara Monroe was already in the corridor, ledger in hand, lips pursed.
Head housekeeper, as of yesterday. Mr. Whitfield was kind enough. You'll find I keep a tight house, Belle. How charitable of him. I do hope the silver is locked.
I left her gaping and pushed through into the study without knocking. Gideon sat behind a great mahogany desk, sleeves turned back to the elbow, pen moving over a column of figures. He did not look up.
There is a stack of correspondence. Copy each letter twice, in a clean hand. Begin.
I crossed to the desk, gathered the bundle, and contrived to let half of it slide from my arms. Pages fanned across the carpet at his boots. I sank to my knees in a great froth of silk and let the skirt ride high enough to show a stocking clear to the garter.
Mr. Whitfield, I cannot reach. Won't you help a lady?
In any other parlor in the South, that look had pulled gentlemen to the floor on top of me. Gideon's gaze flicked down. His pen stopped. For one warm second, I saw the man inside the man. Then the shutters dropped.
Miss Harlow, if you cannot kneel without spreading yourself like a market stall, kneel elsewhere. Whitfield Manor does not employ ornaments.
I gathered the pages with shaking fingers and copied every cursed letter at the side table. Biting the inside of my cheek raw, at 11 Clara swept in with a silver tray.
His brandy and water. He likes it from his secretary's hand, dear. Run along.
She smiled like a cat with cream. I smiled back like a cat with a bird. I carried the cut glass tumbler into the study. 3 paces from the desk I caught my heel on the rug, exactly the way I meant to, and the brandy left the glass in a perfect arc and landed square in his lap. Gideon shot to his feet with a hiss. The dark stain spread across the front of his trousers in a place no lady was supposed to acknowledge. I was on him before he could swear, linen napkin in hand, pressing.
Forgive me, sir, forgive me. Let me.
My palm flattened over the wet broadcloth and found him already changing under it. Hardening, lengthening. Lord above, the scandalous rumors were too modest, staring at the massive beast splitting his trousers. The tide within me breached the levee, leaving my drawers drenched. I swiped my tongue over my dry lips, pressed my thumb against his weeping crown, and traced a slow, wet circle.
You're quite soaked through, Mr. Whitfield. Shall I see to it for you?
His breath went ragged, his pupils blew wide and black. For one shining instant, I felt the leash slip in his hand. Then his fingers closed on my wrist hard enough to bruise the bone.
Miss Harlow, you are courting your grave.
He flung me back. I struck the settee. He turned to the bell pull and yanked it twice.
Mrs. Monroe, in here.
Clara appeared, triumphant, and read the room wrong in an instant.
Mr. Whitfield, I warned you,
You sent her with the glass. Collect your wages on the way out.
Clara's face crumpled. She fled, weeping. He turned to me, breathing through his teeth, the front of his trousers darker than shame.
Put your cheap tricks away, Belle Harlow. Try me again, and I swear before God I will make you wish you had not been born.
He walked into the inner room and slammed the door. Sat among the spilled brandy with my wrist throbbing and my mouth wet and a smile climbing my face, like ivy. Wish I had not been born, sugar. I have been wishing that for years. You only make it sweeter. The Charity cotillion glittered along the Savannah River. Gideon's barouche rocked through the gaslit streets, and I let every turn slide me an inch closer to him along the leather seat. By Bull Street I was against his shoulder. By Bay I had laid my cheek upon his sleeve.
Oh, the motion does turn a girl's head.
Sit up, Miss Harlow.
I sat up. The silk of my gown was cut to the small of my back, and the cool river air on bare skin made me shiver in a way I did not trouble to hide. The ballroom swallowed him whole the moment we entered. Cotton men, railway men, 3 judges, and a senator pressed glasses of bourbon into his hand. He drained each one. By the third I saw it begin. A red glaze creeping up the white of his throat, sweat at his temple, his breath drawing short and deep, the hand that held the glass closed slowly, knuckle by knuckle, until the crystal sang. The fit was rising in him. I slipped my arm through his and put my mouth near his ear.
Upstairs, Mr. Whitfield. Before they see.
Walk!
He did not push me away. His jaw was locked so tight I could hear his teeth. We crossed the room beneath 1,000 stairs and stepped into the hydraulic lift. The brass gate clanged shut. The cage rose. The moment we were alone, he had me against the velvet wall, his forehead pressed into the curve of my throat, both hands flat on the panels beside my head, as if he were holding the lift up by main strength.
Belle, God help you get out at the next floor.
I wound my arms around his neck and arched until my breast pressed his coat.
I am not going anywhere. Whatever it is you need, take it. Take it out of me.
The cage stopped. The bell chimed. He shoved off the wall as if I had burned him, fumbled a key, and was through the door of the penthouse suite before the gate had fully opened. I followed. I found him in the bathing room, fully clothed in the great clawfoot tub, the cold tap roaring, water pluming over his head and shoulders, and turning his white shirt translucent against the dark muscle of his chest. His hands gripped the porcelain rim white-knuckled. He was shaking, like a horse in a thunderstorm. So this was how he survived himself, cold water and crucifixion. I crossed the tile and turned off the tap. I knelt beside the tub and laid my hand on the soaked front of his shirt where his heart was hammering itself to pieces.
Sweetheart, you will tear yourself in two. Let me.
My fingers found the top button. His eyes flew open, red as wine. He seized me by the throat, not to choke but to drag, and pulled me bodily over the rim into the icy water on top of him. I gasped. My gown went black with cold. I straddled his lap through clinging silk and felt, beneath us in the freezing water, the unmistakable, terrifying, magnificent fact of him, strained against the wet wool of his trousers, immense and furious and alive.
Do you want to die tonight, Belle Harlow?
I bent and set my teeth, slow and deliberate, on the knot of his throat.
I want to die. Exactly like this.
Something broke in him. He surged up beneath me. His mouth caught the corner of my jaw, his hand fisted in my drenched bodice, and the seam at my shoulder gave with a long, sweet rip. I felt his palm on bare, wet skin, and I laughed out loud into his hair, and he froze. He shoved me off, climbed from the tub streaming water, crossed to the dressing case on the bureau, and drew out a glass syringe morphine. He found the vein in his forearm without looking and drove the needle home. His breath slowed. The red drained from his eyes.
You cannot be serious. You stick a needle in your own arm rather than have me?
He tossed a dressing gown into the tub on top of me.
Cover yourself. Get out!
I rose dripping, the wet silk transparent as a confession, and wrapped the robe slowly, slowly around my body. At the door I turned.
Gideon Whitfield, I swear on my mother's grave. Before this is finished, I will have you, and on the night I do, you will beg.
I left him standing in a puddle of cold water with morphine in his veins and murder in his face. I bribed a serving girl out of her black uniform for $20 and a pair of silk stockings. By the time the auction began, I was carrying a tray of iced champagne along the back wall of the ballroom, a white cap pulled low, invisible as wallpaper. He was at the head table on the dais, alone in the place of honor. The cloth draped to the floor in heavy damask folds. His morphine was wearing thin. I could see it from across the room, the way his collar darkened with sweat, the way he sat too still, the way a man sits when something inside him is trying to claw out. The auctioneer rapped his gavel.
Ladies and gentlemen, the next lot is a Confederate silver service, presented by an anonymous benefactor. To show its luster, the gas will be lowered for the count of 10.
The lamps dimmed to a low blue. I crossed the dais in 3 breaths and set my tray at his elbow. His head whipped round. His eyes were already going red at the rim before he could speak. I let 1 cube drop from the silver tongs and slide down between his thigh and the chair. Allow me, sir? I went to 1 knee, lifted the edge of the damask, and slipped under the table. The gas came up. Applause. The world above me carried on with its silver and its speeches. Below the cloth there was only the dim cathedral of his knees and the heat coming off him in waves. His hand closed on the back of my neck through my hair, hard.
Out now.
I laid my cheek against the broadcloth of his inner thigh, and felt the muscle leap under my mouth. I turned my head and set my teeth, very softly, into the tender meat above his knee. He drew in his breath in a long thin hiss.
Mr. Whitfield, are you unwell, sir?
Quite well. Continue.
I reached up. My fingers found the first button of his trousers and slipped it free. The second, the third, his hand on my neck went rigid. His whole thigh shook against my cheek. He was burning. He was iron. He was wet through the linen beneath the wool, and I had not yet laid a finger on the heart of him. I freed the last button and turned my face inward and pressed my open mouth, slow and hot and deliberate, against the strained linen of his drawers, where he stood up against the cloth, thick and hard and trembling. Above me he made a sound.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, our greatest benefactor of the evening, Mr. Gideon Whitfield, will say a few.
Not a word. A sound. The spotlight found the table. Applause swelled. He had to stand. He had to stand, and his trousers hung open, and any movement of the cloth would put the truth of him on display before every banker, every senator, every dowager in Savannah. He sank back into the chair as if shot, reached with a hand that shook for the speaking trumpet on the table. He lifted it to his mouth. In the dark beneath the cloth I smiled, and I lowered my head, and I took the linen and what strained beneath it into my mouth in one slow, scalding pull. Gideon. Into the trumpet before the entire assembled aristocracy of Georgia. The sound bloomed out of the speaking trumpet and rolled across the ballroom like a cannon shot. 500 faces turned. The orchestra faltered. The auctioneer's gavel hung in midair. Beneath the table I did not stop. I drew on him slower, deeper, the linen wet through against my tongue, my fingers cradling the heavy aching weight of him through cloth, no longer fit to hide a thing. His thigh shook under my hand like a horse about to bolt. His palm came down on the crown of my head and pressed, not to push me off, to hold himself together.
Mr. Whitfield, sir, shall we summon a physician?
Thank you, no. The cotillion will continue. I have business. I take my leave.
He shoved his chair back. The damask snagged and lifted. Gaslight poured under the table and found me on my knees with my mouth still against him. The room drew breath as one. Clara Monroe surged forward, finger flung at me like a pistol.
That harlot! Under the table! Like an animal, Mr. Whitfield, like a common...
He did not look at her. He reached down, took me by the nape of my neck, hauled me bodily out from under the cloth, and walked through the gawking aldermen. Past Clara, choking on her own venom, out of the ballroom, up the great staircase into the penthouse suite. The door slammed. The bolt drove home. He pinned me against the wood with the flat of his forearm across my collarbones. His chest worked like a bellows. His eyes were no color. A Christian eye should be.
Are you out of your wits, Belle Harlow?
I slid my hands up his ribs.
I told you, sugar. Tonight or I take your name in vain forever.
I lifted onto my toes for his mouth. The heat was screaming under my skin. If he refused me now, I thought I might burn the hotel to the foundation. He caught my chin in his fingers an inch from his lips.
Don't scroll away. Click the video link to download Drama Box. Watch all episodes now.